Ladies and gentlemen, we are back.
What's up? What's up? What's up?
If you can hear us from your ear holes, you are correct. You've made it to the number 176 show on iTunes.
Yes, please. Thank you, everybody, for checking us out and getting us there within a couple months of 14 episodes in. That's amazing.
That is amazing. If you're just tuning in and you haven't heard yet, we've been kind of crazy on our social media, but some big news for the podcast. We crossed the iTunes comedy charts.
Yeah, 176, you guys. I mean,
of all comedy.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have no idea how many are even on there, but I would imagine.
How many are in the last I heard it was over 500,000.
No.
Yeah, over 500,000.
That's crazy. I thought it was
actually I think the number's way higher. We'll have to
listen, if it's anything over like 10,000, that's just crazy. So,
yeah, it honestly is a really exciting thing.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's like I just had a flashback of our first episode that we recorded in our living room. I mean, and again, we're talking about it like we just made the top one. But hey, listen, you got to celebrate the victories.
That's right.
But I just remembered us just being like, hey, let's just do like a test run to see, and then it ended up becoming our first episode. And we were in our pajamas, in our kitchen table, and now we're in another apartment, and now we are 36 also in the comedy interviews.
Actually, I was going to tell you and surprise you on the show. I just checked while I was getting a shower, and we are actually number 28 now in comedy interviews.
No way. Yeah. That's insane.
Yeah. So if you're on your iTunes app on your iPhone, or if you listen to us through your computer, you can go to the comedy interview section. In top shows, we're listed at number 28 right now, which is just...
That is... No. Were you like, crazy. Oh my goodness?
Yeah. I was like, what? So it honestly, it is super exciting. We won't stay on it for too long, but just to kind of share where we're coming from. This is something that we started because we just wanted to do something together. To be honest, we wanted to do something together and do something regularly, and also something that we love doing, which is talking about show
industry,
business.
Yeah.
And as two actors that are pursuing our dreams, sometimes it can get really tough out here. And we found that talking with other actors, other people in the biz, just gives you that little jolt of energy,
inspiration, and also point of view, and also, I've also learned a lot.
Yeah,
that it's like
definitely.
Sometimes it's so much information. I think, since I don't know if everybody's listened to every single episode, but get on it. But us,
they're all up there.
Us talking to every single guest that we've had, sometimes I tend to feel like I'm getting a little overwhelmed by the information and feeling like I have to do everything all at once.
For sure.
You just can't, because then there's also life that you're living. So.
Life that you're living, and that's what's great about the internet is you can always revisit it, Yeah. And, we've already had a ton of guests that have so many great pointers and great insiders, things that really have helped kind of shape what we're doing with our careers, at least as of late. And it's exciting to be a part of that. I feel like it's something we're a part of as well as created. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Because when we reach out for a guest, sometimes we're like, would you want to? And we're just so surprised that there's a lot of interest, and it's been really
it's been really awesome.
So if you're out there and you haven't said hey yet, we'd love to hear your voice. You can follow us at nobelikeshowbe.com. That's our website. You can go there. You can follow us at nobelikeshowbe. That's the short version of No Business Like Show Business. We get direct messages through there. Feel free to reach out to us. Let us know where you're at and what you are interested in hearing from the show. We're 14 episodes in now, which is like crazy to think about.
But, I know, it's awesome.
And I think we got a good groove, but we always want to be open to if there's something out there that you're like, oh, I'd love to hear from someone like this or this topic
or this category of the industry. You know, we're trying to get some casting directors on here. If anybody knows of anybody any casting directors that are interested, we've put out some feelers, but we're trying to just hit like the different categories of what is the industry and kind of give like a variety.
And if you're out there listening and you're going, you know what, I would be a great guest, or I know someone who would be a great guest, on our website we have a submission place where you can go and you can submit your information or someone else's information, and our producer will reach out and see if it's a great fit for the show, and if it's something that our audience would love. You can do so by going to nobi.com, and then there's a button that said it's like submitted guest or something like that.
Okay, we should figure out what that is.
Yeah. I'll tag it.
Yeah, tag it
in the show notes. But this is one of our check-ins.
Yeah, this is we haven't done one in a couple
of weeks now.
Yeah.
Technically, we haven't done one in like a month and a half, but we haven't released one in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So a lot of life has happened since the last time Nadia and I sat on this couch. One of the main things that you can see is the couch and the chairs have switched because we're in a new place.
Yeah, we're in this new apartment, and it's going to be interesting to have this set up. It's not as hot as our last apartment.
Oh, thank goodness. It is such a better apartment. But you know what Preston did? He went on and put on
I was like, he's got a
winter hat
on.
And a jacket. But the truth is I just took a shower, and I couldn't do anything with my hair, and I didn't want to wait any longer. So. And
I was like, we got to get this done now. You guys, I found in the move, this is so crazy. I love like having things close to me. Like I love hugging pillows. That's so weird. But I found this thing called the Boppy, which is what I used when I first had Judah, and I would nurse him on this thing. And I, was laying around, and then I had to wash the cover because it got dirty. Anyway. Yeah. And I was like, oh, just put it away. And then one night I just was laying on the couch, and I like hugged. It was like the perfect pillow to watch TV. So we've just literally had it on the couch. And then I was like, I'm going to put this on me so I can do the video. So if you're wondering what this donut is around my waist, it's
the Boppy. It's the Boppy, and it's a great gift for any expecting mothers out there.
Mothers that want to nurse.
So we were talking about earlier today, we were like, what can we base this episode on? And I think we kind of hit something that we both are interested in sharing a little more about, just to open up and kind of share a little bit more about our lives. We kind of wanted to center it around the struggle, right? What we personally struggle with in our everyday lives that also affects the work that we do as an actor. And then how can we you help each other, find community to help, but also what are practical steps to kind of move through that.
Yeah.
So that's our goal for today.
We'll see how it goes, guys.
We'll see how it goes. So when I think about just even the journey in the podcast, I think one thing that I have loved so much about our guests is how open they are about sharing where they're at and what they're doing. And so that was kind of the inspiration for today,
Yeah, I think, one of the things that when we were pitching to each other what we wanted to do, or like what this show is, it's, we had this idea. It's like from starving artist to overnight success and everything in between.
That's right.
And I think it's so interesting because like so many times we just see the good, like the successes, and we have no idea, like as, people that might not understand the industry or in it, or even if you are in it, but you're just in a different place in your career where you are just constantly working. I think the starving artist and the everything in between is the muddled kind of part of, because it's also the journey and what that means. And it's like, you can go from having like a really great year and then having like a year that feels like it's famine. It's like feast or famine. Yeah. And I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, oh my gosh, okay, what's next? I got to book a job. And, and then you have like, of course, then you will like have that inner battle of like, you can't want the job too bad, or else they're going to read it. They're going to know that you're desperate. So you have to like, so it's almost like this mind, for lack of a better word, like a mind fuck that you have to kind of like go into yourself, where it's like, you have this reality. And if you are a more like practical, I guess, or logical person like myself, it's like, you can't just fake the funk. Right. It's like, if you're like, how am I going to pay my rent next month? You're not going to be like, well, it's just going to come. And I mean, you can, I guess, but I guess it's like just trusting that the work will, but it gets tough. And I think it's one of those things where it's like, it's one of those things that in the industry, it doesn't get really talked enough in like the reality of it?
Yeah, it seems to be like whenever you go out for a job. So if you're listening and you're not an actor, or you're wanting to be an actor and don't have a ton of experience auditioning, what Nadia was referencing is there's this like idea out there, and we believe that it's true because we've seen it work, that if you want it too bad, if you want the job too bad, they're going to sense it, meaning the casting directors will see the desperation, and then you will inevitably not book that job.
Or sabotage it.
Yeah. There's just something about being able to care enough, but also be able to write it off, meaning it's not going to affect your personal worth. So
that's hard.
What she's referencing is whenever the bills are coming and you're a full-time actor and you're going, hey, I haven't booked anything and I got to pay my rent, you're going, I need this job. And there's this crazy psychological thing that happens whenever you don't need the job versus when you do. You know what I mean? And so when you feel like you don't need it, i.e. your bills are paid, you got food on the table.
You got checks coming in. You got residual checks coming in.
Then you can kind of throw that audition away, and often that goes into your favor. But I think, for me, I think that's the hardest part. I think that if you can figure out the mindset and the ability to take care of your personal needs through that part of it, I think that's the drudging through the desert to get you to the promised land. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's the part of going from a starving artist to an overnight success with quotations, because I think it takes that know-how. I think it takes the ability to look around you and see, how can I rub two stones together and get $1,
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's part of the hope for what we're doing here and putting in the work. That hopefully that this would become a vehicle to generate income. Yeah. Where we can be doing this because we love the industry and we want to be able to
add value.
Add value to people's lives, and also, continue to pursue, and amongst other things, we want to be working on projects, and we want to be, filmmaking and writing and stuff. But I think that that's kind of, I think when I was in my 20s, like early 20s, mid 20s, it was one of those things where it felt, and again, I could be wrong, it just felt a lot easier to audition and have 3 different jobs. It was working at the Laugh Factory till 2 a.m. and then getting up at 5 to go sign people in at a gym that I was working at, and then a side job of being somebody's assistant. Yeah. And it's still you're still kind of just barely making it. And I know that other people have side jobs too, where they teach at acting studios and whatever you have to do. I just think that it's one of those things where it's when you're a little older and you have kids, and now it's every minute counts. It's if you're going to go get a job that's paying you $17 an hour, but you're paying somebody $15 an hour to watch your kid. Right. It's I think I'm just going to be home. That doesn't even make any sense.
Congrats. You're paying for for someone else to watch your kid.
Yeah. And no, thank you. I mean, that's fine if people have to do what they got to do, you know what I mean? But it's also, it has to be the perfect job, because it's also needs to be flexible. It's I had 3 same-day auditions this week where I literally had 3-hour notice to get to my audition. Yeah. And again, it's I think in my 20s it seemed easier to not be so tired, but it's now I'm just tired all the time. So it's I can't even imagine having to juggle. And I have little side jobs here with personal training still that I do, which is effortless. It's I show up, I teach, I leave, but I don't know.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. It's the sustained ability to move through uncertainty that it starts to drain. It's the longer and longer that you're having to spin the plates, right? You're starting to spin plate over here, plate over there. You're working 3 jobs. You're doing an audition. You're staying up all day and night. The longer you have to do that, the harder and harder it gets. And the more years that you put into it, the more it is a mind bender, because, like what you were saying, if you go and you get a job that pays just over minimum wage out here in California, then you're spending all of your time at that job and you're not able to get auditions, which getting auditions would lead you to an acting job, which would lead you to another acting job.
Yeah.
You know, so it's this weird circle.
It's also like when you're in your 20s, you can be in a 3-bedroom apartment with 5 people.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So your rent can be like super cheap. And
in fact, if you're out there and you're in your 20s or earlier and you want to be an actor in LA, I recommend that. I'd say get literally a $200, $300 rent payment by rooming with as many people as possible.
Like seriously, like no, don't get into any debt.
Yeah, don't have debt.
Like work as much as you can, you know, when you can, and audition. And then, you know, hopefully when you're like later in life, you're not like still like living with 5 or 6 different people.
You get a little freedom. And that's, you know, that's something that we're learning now. But, you know, if you're out there and you're thinking to yourself, you know, I just want to be free and have my own place and all this stuff. A really big key to that, no matter how much money you make, literally if you're making minimum wage or much more than that, if you have no debt, your life will be easier. If you get no credit card, you go and spend no money that you don't have, you are not indebted to having to make that monthly payment, with the exception of your house payment, right? If you're living somewhere.
But you need a car in LA.
You need a car. Hopefully you can pay for that in cash or have someone give you one. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, sure. People are just giving away cars.
Or you can save up for one.
Let me get in that line.
Save up for a $5,000 one. But all that to say, free yourself from the financial burden of pursuing your dream as an actor.
It's just so hard. I feel like it's hard out here because it's like, you know, people want to go get coffee and they want to go out for drinks and they want to be at the clubs looking good, and they want to go get haircuts and they want to be in acting
network.
Class. Yeah, go network. And so it's a sacrifice. I mean, you know, you'll figure it out. People will figure it out. But I think that's definitely an area that I think it's just one of those things where finances is such a big thing that kind of keeps you occupied if you constantly feel like oh my gosh, what are we going to do now?
Exactly. You know, something that keeps me going is finding ways to fall back in love with the acting part of it, because it feels like it's so, you know, few and far between whenever you are figuring out how to pay the bills. Like what, for you, Nad, what are some things that, or rather, what's the story of how you fell in love with acting?
Well, for me, I had kind of mentioned it in our first story where I kind of started off as a quote unquote model.
Yes.
So stupid. Why is that stupid? You guys, I never modeled because it was so naive. It was just like, honestly, I don't even like posing for pictures. I hate it. Like, why did I ever think I was going to want to be a model? But
modeling is actually really tough.
I can't even.
Crazy.
I have friends that like book print all the time, and I'm just like, how? It's just so awkward to me.
We went on a family trip to a train station today, and we took photos of each other, and I was like, what do I do with my feet?
Why do my fingers look like they're... Anyway.
Why am I making that face?
Yeah. Somebody teach. And it's funny. Anyway, it's just different. There's like no intention behind it. I don't know. It's weird for me. But anyway, that took me to finding an agent because I thought I was going to be like Carmen Electra or something. I mean, come on, of all people.
Wow.
Do you know who Carmen Electra is?
A 90s.
How do you even know who she is?
She's in some movie. I feel like she knew.
Hilarious.
What's that dude who like did the Tiger Blood?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Charlie Sheen. Was she connected to Charlie Sheen?
I have
somehow?
no idea. Maybe.
I feel like she was, because I feel like that's how I know her. I think they did a movie together.
Any brunette with blue eyes is who I thought I was going to be.
Awesome.
Back in the day. Anyway, that led me to an agent, which led me to like really cheesy auditions, which led me to maybe I should take an acting class. So I think I fell in love with acting in an acting class.
Awesome.
And I think it's been a while since I've actually been in an acting class. And I think different things in my over a decade of pursuing acting has brought me back to the love of acting.
Yeah, for sure.
So maybe like in 2015, I started writing sketch.
Yeah.
And that was a different
reinvigorating.
Yeah, it was just different for me, and it was a challenge that I had never done before, and I really wasn't sure if I was gonna like it. But I found out that I was decent, and I was kind of good at it, and I obviously, if I did it more, I would be better. But it definitely opened opportunities, and then that kind of gave me like a different spin on character and acting, and putting your own ideas on paper and seeing it on stage, or hearing somebody come up to you after and being like, oh my God, did you write that sketch? That was hilarious. And I loved this and that. So that was just, it's another form of storytelling, right? And I think that was it for me around 2015. And then I think I got a little stale in it. Life happened. And then recently, I think stand-up.
I love it.
The idea of it, I think we've talked about a little bit, like on my show, like a couple weeks ago. And it was the first time that I've kind of felt in my element in a really long time to something that was very new.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that means, what's going to come of it. But I think that has kept me inspired to see what's next as an actor and an actress. And one of the things that has always helped me get back to the love of acting is acting class, like a really good class. It's just time right now. I mean, I'm actually taking a class September 3rd. It's just a commercial class, just to kind of freshen up, just because I audition a lot commercially, and I just think that it's always just good to watch other people and just freshen up, right? Yeah. Even though I've been doing it from working as a commercial actress for over 10 years now, I think that there's always something that we can be learning. So I'm really hoping that from that class, I'll be re-inspired as well.
I love it.
What about you?
My love for acting came probably through Tom Cruise.
Oh, yeah. Because you love his run.
I do. His run's awesome. I'm not the only one. There's actually a Tom Cruise lookalike.
Insanity.
Did you see that Instagram ad?
I did not.
So there's a Tom Cruise lookalike, a guy who looks like him and does like impression of him, who does this huge. It's like a huge like vote for Tom 2020 campaign. Gosh. It's hilarious. Anyways, so Tom Cruise is probably the main inspiration. I watched a lot of movies where I'm from. Grew up in Alabama, and all my buddies would either come over to my house or we would all go to the movies and just watch movies. That's one of the best things that you can do in Alabama. There's a ton of things that you can do, I'm sure. We found that one, and that was our digs. You know, we just went and watched movies. And there was one summer where I watched Star Wars. People are going to hate me. I watched Star Wars Episode 1 literally on repeat. As soon as it would finish, I would start it over for the whole summer, every single day. I mean, granted, it wasn't like my full attention every single day, but I was one of the few who loved Jar Jar, and I know I'm going to spark a heated debate here, but I did at the time.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
So in the Star Wars world, are you familiar with Jar Jar Binks, for one?
I know.
So there's
y'all.
Star Wars, it's titled Episode 1.
I thought that was Star Trek.
No. It's in Star Wars Episode 1. There's a character. His name is Jar Jar Binks. He was a digitally animated character. Some people found him to be annoying. I guess I was at the perfect age where I thought he was hilarious. Misa called Jar Jar Binks. Misu, your humble servant.
I think I know who he is because I know that voice.
The Misa. So anyways, a lot of people, hated it. Obviously I've grown up in my movie taste, and, whatever, I can take it or leave it. But at the time I loved it, and I watched it every single day. But all that to say, I was a huge movie fan. But I was also everywhere. I was learning to play guitar. I was in a thing called the Civil Air Patrol where I was learning to fly airplanes.
I know when we were dating, real quick,
yeah,
side note guy, when he would tell me stuff, I literally was like, I almost thought he was like lying and bullshitting me, because I'm like, how many lives has this guy lived? He was like, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this, and I'm like, okay, you were a civil, whatever. But then like, it's freaking true.
Yeah, I was up in an airplane, learning to fly an airplane before I was actually legally able to drive a car. At 14, I was doing gliders and Cessnas.
I don't know what a Cessna is, but
it's a small prop plane,
okay, awesome.
Propeller plane. But anyways, so through all this, I loved the military. I loved punk rock. I loved, I did, the drama in high school. We talked about that. I did the High School Musical. I also tried out for rando sports.
Like tennis.
Like I had no drive for tennis. In my senior year, I wanted to try out. And then it dawned on me when I did the High School Musical that all of these different things that I love to do because I've seen them in movies.
It's like I don't have to be the greatest tennis player, but I can pretend like I am.
Totally. And, I have great respect for the military and everyone who's involved. I always wanted to be in the military. I wanted to be a fighter pilot. But I think it's actually because of my love of Top Gun, the movie.
Right.
Obviously the day-to-day.
These things inspired the things that you were like actively pursuing as hobbies.
Exactly. And so for the longest time, the wanting to be an actor was a very like small secret that only I kept. Like for the longest time in my life, like, I was doing music and I was, doing this airplane thing. And then I had a car and was working and then I went to Disney World. And so for the longest time, it felt so distant. Like you got to understand, I'm in Alabama, in a like a place where not many people have either moved out to California for the film industry or even know anyone who was in it. So the thought to me was like, I don't know how, but one day I'm going to be in California and I'm going to be pursuing a career in acting.
Look at you now.
And look at you now. I'm a podcast host.
Look at you now.
I'm just kidding.
Look at you. Hey, you're auditioning. You've worked commercially.
Totally.
Like you've done some short films. Come on now.
No, it's cool and exciting. And I'm definitely closer today than I was, back in Alabama. But I don't know. I think the thing for me, going back to the struggle.
Or what keeps you falling back in love with it?
That's good. What keeps me falling back in love with it is I truly still get the movie magic feels. Like when I watch a movie that I'm like zoned into, like I truly get inspired and excited. So honestly, all it takes for me is just to watch a really good movie. Like one that's kind of been getting me stoked recently is I've watched the Stranger Things.
Yeah.
We've not watched it forever. And
we just started watching it when when we moved here or in our old place?
We started it when we were moving from the old place, but it was like 1 or 2 episodes when your mom was here. And then whenever we moved here, we continued.
No, we watched a couple, like the whole first season, right? Because my mom never slept here.
Maybe. I don't remember finishing the season, but
or maybe she slept here once.
I'd say yes. I'd say yes to whatever you're saying.
It doesn't matter.
But anyways, watching that gives me, it's exciting to see people doing cool work. It's exciting, kind of getting lost in something. And that for me is how I enjoy movies, if I can get lost in it, if I can watch it and be invested in the characters. And I think, it is one of those things where you do have to cling to it. When I worked for Disney World, they would call it you would have to find your magic, right? Which is the memory that you would go to make your day special, right? So that you can make other people's day special. So because, you're working in the happiest place on earth, but ultimately it comes down to it's a job,
Yeah.
And you're going to get tired and people are going to get crazy and cranky and it's going to be hot, especially in Central Florida. And so they would always say, find your magic and then sprinkle your pixie dust. You know what I mean? It's talking about like if you had a really cool moment with a kid who's like, who loves you, and you had a moment and it's really fun and you can see how happy the experience of like meeting, Goofy or meeting Aladdin was for them,
Yeah.
Then you can kind of remember that when things get hard. And I think for me, the thing that I always go to is I try to find a movie that I just love. Like I've seen, a ton of Tom Cruise movies because of that.
Oh God. That's awesome though.
Yeah, but you see good work and it makes you go, I want to do that,
Yeah.
So now I think it'd be a good way to segue into the weaknesses. Like so that's the thing that keeps us coming back, right? That's the little drive. But what are some of the things we were talking earlier that we kind of want to open up on like character flaws almost?
Yeah, right? I guess.
Is that a good way to say it?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a character flaw, or you can kind of, I think one of the things that I've been really trying to be mindful of is what are the things or patterns in my life that keep me from experiencing joy, which I think ultimately like transfers into your work and what it is that you're doing, and or lies that we tell ourselves.
For sure.
And it's interesting because I feel like, so I've been doing a lot of reading on like the Enneagrams and like,
oh yeah, this
does anybody know what this is? I don't know if you guys know what this is. I'm sure some of you know, but it's like a personality test.
Yeah, it's a I don't know who has pulled it all together, but essentially they've broken humans into 9 different personalities, and you can align yourself with a majority of the attributes of 1, 2.
So you take
3,
a test,
yeah,
or you can take a
9.
test or read a book or whatever.
Yeah,
and it's just been interesting because that coupled with just things that I am fully aware of about myself, or just things that keep popping up, you know.
Yeah.
I think that, first of all, I'm supposedly an Enneagram number 6 with a wing. I think my wing is either a 7 or a 5. I can't remember. But it's basically, I'm what's called the loyalist. Uh-huh. So I'm like super loyal, but I also don't trust anybody. So it's like, you know.
So if someone wins your trust, they're in.
Oh, they're in. But I'm really skeptical of most people and most things. So I'm always like... And it's so true because I'll read stuff and I'm like, oh my God, that's me. Because it's like I'm always looking for the catch, or what are your intentions, or like worst case scenario, right? And also very fear and anxious based.
Right.
So very much like anxious, fearful. And I think it's been like this thing, probably that's crept in since childhood, of this just constant anxiety or worry. And I think that that's something worth really exploring and digging, like kind of getting to the bottom of that. Because I think it's always, you know, my personality is like, I can be very rebellious. Like I can be very rebellious. Like we'll be like, stick it to the man. Like stick it to like, you know, like the people that think.
You can't tell me what to do.
Yeah. Like, I'm sorry. Like, who are you? Like, you know, and I'll challenge you and I'll lawyer you. And I think it's kind of like I've also convinced myself of things that I think would make me happy. But then, so like, for example, like very early on, it was very much like for females, I think, well, not all females, I can't speak generalized, but I know for like myself, I can say that looking a certain way and being influenced by the media or the TV of the time, like when I was younger, it really created what is beautiful, and it was like I didn't look like that, so it was just weird because it's like, oh, like I want to be like her, I want to be like Carmen Electra, you know what I mean? I want to be like, you know, and for somebody else it might have been like Heidi Klum or I don't know, whoever. But then in my mind, I've noticed like this progression of like not being good enough. So then, you know, we talk about like the man show and like Googling and this and that, like what I thought was sexy and super hot and whatever. And it's like at 18, I was like fully convinced I needed a boob job. Like literally, I was like, you know, Victoria's Secret, this, I need that, I need this. So it's like, you go to that extreme, and like I went and did that.
Yeah.
And it was like crazy. What 18-year-old even knows? Like, I don't even think you're fully developed at 18.
You're not. Your brain isn't, let alone your body.
It's crazy. I mean, whatever. If that's what you want to do, you're an adult, figure it out. But honestly, for me, it was one of those things where I think I didn't have the maturity level to really think to myself, oh, when I'm like 35, is this something I'm going to want in my body? But then it was that. But then I was like, always felt fat. Or I always felt big. And anyways, I started getting like health issues. So then anyways, I've had 3 surgeries. I had a second one to get them smaller because I thought that would make me feel better. But then ultimately I kept getting like sick and stuff like that. So I ended up getting them out. You know the story. But then it was like, then there was always something else. It was like, you're too short, your hair's too curly, or it's too this or that. And I think that for me, the thing that I want to really wholeheartedly embrace is myself.
Yeah.
Like your authentic self. And, you know, as far as like, just even like the physical stuff, I feel like it's hard enough to make peace with that. Right.
Right.
So I don't know. I think it's a trip because I think so many times, I think with our industry, there's a lot of facade. And though I do think that now it seems like they're trying to normalize like being unique in your own different way. So like right now, you know, I always get like I'll have, what is it called? Episodes where I'll get like super bummed about like my vitiligo. And so if anybody knows what that is, it's like, it's an autoimmune condition where your pigment on your skin starts to kind of like, how would you say it?
It lightens.
It lightens. Yeah.
So you can get spots on you.
So you can get like spots and some of the like pigment like starts to go away. So I get super self-conscious about it. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's why I'm not booking work. And what do I do? My career's over. Yeah. And then it's like, and then I think, oh, but there's like this amazing supermodel that's like really dark and like it's like super obvious. Yeah. But then I'm like, but then I'm not a supermodel. Like I'm not her. I'm on the catwalk. Yeah, what the hell? No, but I think that part of that is, so real quick, I'm gonna pull this up.
Yeah.
So I don't think I oh yeah, I did share this with you earlier. I just took a screenshot because I was like, I need to remember this. I thought it was pretty cool. Let me see if I can find it.
And, you know, while you're looking for that, you know, we're in a business that compounds that for actors. You know, I'm sure there are people out there who may not be actors who feel that about, you know, themselves. Like, I'm not pretty enough. I'm not, you know, I'm not short enough, or I'm not tall enough, or I'm too short, or I'm too tall, or, you know, all those things. But especially in the entertainment business for so long, it has been a beauty contest. You know what I mean? And it is hard to kind of accept what you got. And I just wanted to second that's the case. And we're going to pull up some NSYNC right about now.
No, we're not. I'm just trying to take a screenshot of this, and I have this like awful, and I keep hitting the wrong button. All right. So anyways, you were saying, baby?
No, I was just kind of filling in the gap of, you know,
sorry, I should have pulled this up earlier.
The compound effect.
I didn't really think I was going to talk. Anyway, all that to say, I think that one of the things that
you can pull it up.
I pulled it up.
Oh, perfect.
So one of the things that I just recently read, which I thought was awesome. And anyway, all that to say, with like my Enneagram stuff, personality stuff, that I'm super hard on myself. You know, it's like, man, I put my body through so many extreme things, which I also think a lot of this, you know, like my implants and like all that probably triggered a lot of my autoimmune stuff today, which it is what it is, whatever. And there's also like stress and stuff that I had been through. But, you know, I read this really cool thing that talks about the ego's favorite stories. And it's from the psychologist I follow on Instagram. She's at the Holistic Psychologist. And she says that the ego has these stories that it likes to say to itself.
Yeah.
I am not worthy. Things aren't happening quickly enough. Other people are better than me. Things will be better when I have X. So there's always something outside of yourself
that you're comparing to or reaching for.
Or it's like, oh, when I have that role, or when I have that job, or when I have that manager, or when I have that husband, or when I have that baby, or when I have all my health issues and when all my skin repigments, then I'll really feel confident. But the truth is, I've had a history of just lack of confidence.
Yeah.
And that's not something, you know, and it's funny because people say the craziest shit. Like, it's just like, I get people that are well-meaning, but sometimes I'm like, dude, come on now. Like, I have a friend that's like,
example.
I have a friend who was like, you can't be bummed out about that. You got to look at it like that's cool. Like, girl, that's cool. Like, I would look at that and be like, man, that's so cool. It's like having a bunch of scars. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know that I want to be walking around with a bunch of scars. I mean, I get the sentiment of like looking, like trying to find something that you think is traumatizing to you,
and embracing it,
and saying, "Hey, this is my." Yeah, exactly, totally. Yeah. I would love that, but then there's also like,
it's tough to do.
And I feel like an asshole when I literally read a story about like this girl who's like could be possibly losing her life, her battle with cancer. And then I saw this other girl who like her whole body was like burned and she's like writing this book and talking. So it's like, you feel like an asshole when you're like, okay, I have white patches on my hands and I'm depressed about it. It's like,
well, it's tough because you don't always have perspective. It's the part in you that feels bad about it is the emotional part, which is it should be attended to, right? But you can't in a feeling go, oh wait, let me take a second and not feel bad because I don't have it so bad. I mean, it's good that sometimes like situations in life happen, like you meet someone or you hear someone's story and that kind of pulls you out of the funk, but you can't be hard on yourself for feeling
how you feel.
You can't be, exactly.
I think it's okay. So let me finish this and then we'll go back to that thought.
Perfect.
Someone owes me. I think that's a funny one because I don't think that we would ever say that out loud. Someone owes me, but I do think that our actions and our reactions to
equal that.
Yeah. It's like,
sure.
Why did that happen?
Yeah.
Like, what about me? It's
I'll
like,
give you an example. It happened today coming home from the farmer's market. Some person was cutting over. They cut into our lane and then they were going too slow and then they had to turn, but they weren't exiting our lane in time. And I'm like, this person is doing it to me.
Yeah, and maybe they were. Or maybe they just had their head up their ass.
And maybe they were lost. And how crazy would that be if I was lost and someone didn't understand?
Yes. There's no point in trying, and other people are holding me back.
Yeah.
And I would even say when I read this, I was like,
and all of these are things that the ego says.
The ego, which I think is a bad thing. I think the ego is something that like is outside of us. It's in us, but it's outside of us. That's louder. That can kind of hold us back.
For sure.
I think that there's something about that where I think we need to get more of a rein and be accountable to what we allow and tell ourselves.
Yeah.
And I also think that we have to be honest with ourselves and not like suppress things, right? Like if we suppress things from our childhood and I don't think that's helpful either, to constantly just sweep things under the rug. But I definitely think that there's, for me, I find that these things that are immediately affected by external factors, whether it's circumstantial or whether it's like, health, whether it's financial, whether it's just the season, the year that we has had, or the year that I've had as an actress, whether it's been like last year, I made the most I've ever made as an actress. And it was an amazing year, but I feel like there was still this feeling of
dread.
It's just dread. Like, oh my gosh. It was like, I'd get this crazy residual check.
And then you're like, it's never going to come
and
again.
Then I'm like, I'm never going to get another paycheck like this. Like, this is crazy. And it's like, you can't live like that. And I think that that's something that I like legit feel that, needs attention to be able to continue to do the work that we do where we don't feel discouraged, because there's so many times where I would be like, well, fuck, like, let's just go do something else. Like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
But like, there's nothing else I want to be doing.
Yeah. And to really understand, like, you might be out there and you might be tuning in just because you like TV and film and you want to learn more about it. You might be an actor, you might be, a part of the business in any other way, but the hard that we talk about, it always cracks me up, because before I got here and I would hear, like radio interviews or TV interviews or whatever with actors, I didn't understand the hard part that they're talking about. I'm like, what? It's so fun. You're in a movie. You know what I mean? Like, that's so freaking cool. And it's like, just to give you an example, as someone who's been here for a couple of years now, you go on 100 auditions, you might get 100 callbacks or 10 callbacks, and then you might book one job. So if you were to consider that for just a second, that is 100 times that you're going to interview for a job to get one job.
And
that's a good percentage. 10%, booking 10%, that's actually pretty good.
But that's the crazy thing. It's like, imagine for those of you that are not in the industry.
Right.
Imagine if you were applying online through fucking Indeed or wherever the freak people apply for jobs. I have no online. You walk in, you're going to Starbucks.
Is that still going? Monster?
I have no idea. Maybe. But imagine going on 100 job interviews and either A, never hearing back.
Oh yeah, they don't tell you.
Sometimes you don't even, you might get a call back and you just never hear back. A call back doesn't mean anything, but other than like, okay, maybe you did something right. I don't know.
They want to see you again. That's it.
They want to see you again. Director wants to see you. They want to see, and, or just either way, if you don't hear back or they tell you no, it's still a freaking no. I would love somebody to go to 100 or plus job interviews in a year and maybe get like 2 yeses, and then the job's over like in a day or 2, and then you have to try to go get another job. And I don't think that people get that part of it. And the thing is,
or imagine driving to your work every day for a few months and not getting paid until one day. And then the following day, you got to go drive back to work every single day.
Which is your audition, which is your job interview.
Yep.
And I think that that's where, it seems so glamorous. And then, and then also not so glamorous. I mean, we've seen a lot of celebrities take their own lives, and there's mental health, and, there's drugs, and, and I think that ultimately we have to remember that everybody doing this is human.
100%.
And everybody has their own demons that they're struggling with, and that they are trying to overcome and grow and get some control over, you know what I mean? And it's a different thing. Everybody's gonna have a different struggle. Like, I know people that work all the time and they have this, but maybe like they're trying so hard to find that like husband or wife,
right?
Or they're wanting that child that they can't have, or they don't have like a ton of friends, or maybe they have a ton of friends but like they're still lonely. Like, there's just always something, right?
And
maybe for some there's never anything. I don't know.
Right. It's one of those things that I think like that is a part of the human condition. Like, to be on this earth is to experience happiness and to experience sadness. Like, terrible things happen.
Yeah.
Great things happen. Like, I used to work at a hospital, and I would always like stand at I worked in the basement.
Another thing, he freaking worked at a hospital, you guys.
I would tell people that I indirectly save lives. And the way that I would indirectly save lives is I would just go around the hospital filling up oxygen tanks. And then, of course, in an emergency, if someone needed oxygen,
he saved a life.
And I'd also clean some stuff. So anyways, a very nominal job. But anyways, I was in the basement of the hospital, and it was in a downtown area. So it was a high rise. It was like a skyscraper, but not nearly as tall as New York. And I would always stand there and just like look up, and I would think, the floor right above me is like expecting parents going to meet their baby for the first time. The floor right above them is the emergency ward, where someone might have lost an arm or been stabbed, or something terrible happened to them. Firework accident, motorcycle accident, people on the verge of losing something. The floor above them, people who are terminally ill, who are in a constant battle with their disease or illness. And the floor above that, someone who they don't know what's happening, but they're in some sort of sickness and they need to be looked at. And the floor above that is people who lost their minds or going through some, mental struggles that they have to be detained. And the floor above that, people saying goodbye to their loved ones because their life is ending, or their loved one's life is ending. And I would be overwhelmed, being like this soon-to-be actor, you know what I mean? Like, all the empathy just exploding. I'd be overwhelmed thinking, like, in this building alone, every piece of life is represented, from life to death. Literally the happiest moments in your life and the worst moments.
And the scariest and the worst and the scariest.
Yeah. Happy,
and saddest.
Dark. People would, come through their illnesses. All that happened in the same building, and it would happen every single day. And it's like, something that's actually helped me is to take that thought as I go through life. It's like, fortunate for us people, we don't have that every single day happen in our lives. Sometimes that day sucks. Sometimes it's the worst day of our lives. Sometimes it's the best day of our lives. But at least we don't have to experience all of that all the time, every single day. You know what I mean?
That's nuts.
But I think it is such a personal journey, acting and being a part of the business, because there's so many things outside of your control. Casting, even getting into the casting room, finding an agent, finding someone to believe in you when you don't even know if you believe in yourself, not knowing what acting class to take. There's so many different, or being in Alabama and having no idea how you're going to get to, California. There's so many what ifs and questions that I think you are almost face to face with yourself and your shortcomings more than any other time.
Well, what would you say? Because, we talked about kind of the things that like I struggle with. Yeah. And I think that they've looked differently, to be quite honest with you. And in the, 10 plus years I've been doing this for work. So what would you say, like, are the things that you feel are your hurdles, for lack of a better word? Every day I feel like I'm learning a new hurdle.
But if I were to boil it down, there's a couple of things that I struggle with consistently. And I think for me, I relate with you in self-image. Growing up, I was a larger boy. I was considered obese. I was 290 pounds at my heaviest, or 280 pounds at my heaviest. And so I struggled a lot with how I looked, and I struggled silently. I generally, when I'm hanging out with you, smiles on. I got big teeth, so I can't help it. I can't help it. It just looks like I'm smiling. I'm just kidding.
His smile lights up a room, you guys. Come on.
Thanks, babe. But so I would be interested in having a good time with people, but inside I'd be suffering. I'd be going, I can't wear any clothes. None of them fit. Or the one that I bought like last month for this event doesn't fit. You know what I mean? Because I was just in this. But what
made you sad about it?
What made me sad about it is I felt uncomfortable all the time. And I think I also had a deep down desire to not be held back by it. You know what I mean?
Did you think that that would keep you from working, or?
Definitely. And it kind of does, like, to be honest about, the biz, like, there's different segments. We talk about like how people put you in boxes, and it's a truth, but you got to think of it in a way of like, otherwise people wouldn't know what to do. Like, you have to categorize even yourself to be able to start making any, headway in this business. Yeah. Obviously you don't want to be stuck in a category, and you don't want people to make that decision for you.
And you can't evolve. It's not like you can't evolve.
Right. But I would look at it like this. The big people, the guys who were really large, were the ones who were really funny, but they were also the joke. Like the funny moment would happen because the big guy broke his pants. You know what I mean?
We just saw that episode yesterday in Stranger Things, and then that little.
I'm super sensitive to this. This is crazy. Thank you for bringing that up. There's this pool scene, right? And there's this little kid who's overweight. He would be considered obese for his age, and he's walking by, and one of the main characters makes a joke. The
lifeguard.
Yeah, makes a joke about how
he's a lard ass. Hey, lard ass.
Yeah, he calls him a lard ass. And the truth is look, I am not one of those people who believes in like the quote unquote safe space where like people will say whatever. I think it's our personal journey to learn how to like block out the haters, because I'm all about free speech. But anyways, with that said, I can't help but think how cruel it is to be the parent of that kid, the actual actor kid, and say, no, I'm going to have my actor kid be in a role where the only time he's on screen, someone refers to him as a lard ass, and it's because of his weight. And look, I get it. The point of I'm an actor. I understand the point of the story and the point of him even saying that was to
make that guy look like an asshole.
Exactly. Make the character look like an asshole, because that's an asshole thing to say. So I get it. I understand it. But at the same time, that is an actual kid. That's an actual overweight kid who's being an actor. And guess what? What role did he get? The lard ass.
Well, yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And so whenever I would grow up or growing up, I would always be like, naturally comedy comes easy to me. Like people tend to laugh or whatever. So I have always felt like this resistance to it because of the way that I looked, actually. Because I had a fear that if someone called me funny, that they were equating it to my weight.
Right.
Which was not the case, you know.
And hey, look, if you're comfortable, like if you're, you know, it's everybody's own thing. Everybody's going to feel differently with different, whatever is, like if you feel comfortable in your skin, whether you're, you know, you tend to be scrawny or you tend to be like thick and you got like, you know, shake what your mama gave you, whatever, like shake what your mama gave you. Like everybody's going to have their thing.
And for me, and that's a great point. It's not about saying you're actually not good enough. For me, it was, I felt like I wasn't good enough. I felt like the weight was actually holding me back. So if that's you, if you feel like the weight is holding you back, then embrace, you know, new diets and working out and partnering with friends and family that can encourage you through it. But if you like you were saying, if you're like, hey, I love these curves, great. Like enjoy them. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I just, for me, felt like if I wasn't careful, if I didn't figure this out, I would be the Chris Farley, which in a sad interview of Chris Farley's friend, he was being interviewed and they were pitching stories in the Saturday Night Live room or whatever. And one of the jokes came and he goes, oh, great. Another one where, you know, in other words, the big guy's the joke, right? Mm-hmm. And it was a moment of authenticity for Chris Farley. And it's like Chris Farley, who is hilarious and a genius and wasn't just his weight and was hilarious, you know, whether he had it or not, also felt that sting of what it's like to be the butt of the joke. And so for me, I have fought against that mentally my whole life, but I never had the knowledge or the discipline to work out regularly, to eat well, you know. So for me, a big struggle to boil that down with all of those colloquialisms is to say, I generally struggle with, I'd say, laziness. And what's the term for like indulgence? Indulging. So I struggle with that. And then that's also the thing that I fight against, right? So if I don't feel confident, then I'm sad about it. But the only thing that's going to fix that is by doing something about it. But because you're sad about it, you feel like not doing anything about it. And I've even went through periods in my life where like the only comfort was food. And so I would go home and I'd get like a double cheeseburger, extra large fry, extra large Coke, and a large chocolate shake. And that'd be my dinner. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like,
which I think is so crazy.
That's like 2,000 calories alone.
Yeah.
And that'd be my dinner. Let's say I had a really bad day and I had that for lunch and dinner, which would be some days. Yeah. And it's crazy to think about it now, but you know, that is a struggle of mine, feeling confident, feeling worthy of, you know, stepping into the room. It's like, and actually I've been really excited as of late. I've been really making a good stride to make running a part of my
kind of getting
my
back
days,
into it.
Getting back into it, and hopefully you'll be seeing a Mr. Incredible soon or something. I don't know.
He's already here.
Oh,
it is funny though, because I remember even like, you know, for everybody, there's just such a difference in perception and in like the way we grew up and the way that we see things, where it's like, you know, you've shared with me that anytime that there was celebration or something good or even something sad, it was always rewarded. It was always around like food, and it was like a treat.
Right.
It was like, we didn't got no treats. We didn't get no treats. It was like, no matter what, it was like, if we did something good, then you need to be doing something good. Like, that's good that you did that. You needed to be doing that anyway. So why are we treating this? So, you know what I mean? Like, it was like the treats that we got were kind of like, hey, you did your book report. So the school gave you like a personal pan, like Pizza Hut, that you could go, and then like, it was my personal pan pizza, right? So like a little one.
Yeah.
But then like I had to share it with my sister. Because like my mom was not about to buy her a pizza too. So it's just interesting because anytime something good happens with us, I'm like, let's go do something. And you're like, let's go eat. And I'm like, I don't need to go like have sweets and have an indulgent meal to feel that we're celebrating. But then I think we're also learning off of each other to like, hey, like, let's go have a glass of wine, or let's go have a drink, or let's go have like a dessert. And then I think it's that, for us, we're figuring out the balance of like, it's not that I don't want to have it. It's just that I didn't grow up needing it. Right. So it was just like, that wasn't my go-to. But we're finding a way to like also incorporate like what was normal for you, but kind of taper that back a little bit to where it's not like, hey, we're having treats, and then guess what? We're doing this too. And then we're doing that, you know, like, I don't know.
No, 100%. It's so interesting growing up and looking at yourself. And I would encourage this for anyone listening. If you feel like there's a lot of things out of your control, then pause and just take a look at yourself. Take an honest inventory of yourself. And if you need help, therapy's out there. It's great.
Yeah.
That you might not even know it, but your insurance might even cover it. And if you're not on your own and you're on your parents' insurance might cover it.
And some therapists even do like sliding scale where like if you're like lower income, like, you know, I think it's one of those things where as actors, we use so much of, we are our instrument.
Correct.
Like, I think there's been stigmas against mental health. There's like, you know, shame and guilt associated with depression or just if there's any struggle, like whether it's bipolar or whether it's you know, manic depressive or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I think that because we're using ourselves and or our imagination or our experiences or the lives that we've lived, I think that if we're not constantly seeking to heal old wounds,
right,
I think that it's something that's going to own us.
100%.
And I think that that's the thing. Look at like,
and you can wake up looking at your situation going, I can't pay my bills. I have to work all the time. I'm in so much debt. And you can go, man, this sucks. Life is so hard. Or you can say, I got into debt. I did this.
Yeah.
I went and I bought something that I shouldn't have bought. So let me work with people that I know, friends, family. Let me get another job. Let me figure out how to build and get out of this.
A support system.
I own the problem. And I'm really working on that, is owning the issues and not blaming it on society, not blaming on your neighbor, not saying you're this way because this, that, or the other.
And even if something did happen to you, I mean, there's legitimate people that have wounds wounds, I feel like, are things that are like happened to us.
Correct.
That we did not go out and like, whatever. And I even think that those wounds, we kind of have to like own them in the sense that like, hey, this thing hurt me.
Right. Hurt me, and it affects me to this day.
Yeah. And I think that is something that, you know, we're working through, and, you know, like weaknesses. And sometimes our weaknesses are just our weaknesses. Our weaknesses are things that we just have patterns in our lives that we, you know, keep creeping up, whether it's poor finances or whether it's, you know, laziness or idleness or, being overly critical of ourselves. Like for me, like, you know, we talk about like the differences in how we grew up, where it was like, he grew up in a very encouraging home where everything was like amazing. Like everybody was just super encouraging and like building up. And I didn't grow up like that. Like everybody was just like, why are you wearing that? That's ugly. Go change it. Or like, why did you get a B here? Like, no, this needs to be an A. It was like nothing was ever good enough. And I think with the personality of somebody who has a child,
loyalist,
like being like super hypersensitive, I think there was just like always this like desire to like get everything right and perfect.
Right.
And so I think that's just such a difference, because I can be overly critical of myself to the point where that ego that we were talking about
creeps up,
and it's like, why are you even wasting your time? Like, really, you're gonna go start doing stand up in your 30s? Okay, like, what are you gonna go tour at midnight? You have a 1-year-old at home. Like, literally every obstacle in the book,
right?
That's my inner monologue.
And my tendency is the exact opposite, which is to not be critical at all. So you slept through your alarm 5 times. That's okay. You'll do it again tomorrow.
Go get it. Yeah. Let's go get
a pint of ice cream.
Let's go get a frappuccino.
Yeah. No, we wanted to thank you for, if you've made it this far, thank you for listening. We wanted to open up about some of the things that we struggle with, because I believe, and I won't speak for you, but I believe that you agree that the role of an actor is to be honest.
Yeah.
And is to be as honest as you can possibly be, so that when you are taking on a new character and you're portraying that character, it's something that's true, and it's something that people can feel is true. And so we wanted to be honest with you guys, because you might be tuning in thinking that, oh, I got to figure out how to make it. I got to figure out what I'm doing wrong. And the truth is that's exactly what we're doing and what we struggle with.
Yeah, and I think that obviously in a safe place, we feel that this is a safe place. I mean, there's not any information that we've, there's obviously things that we, even like marital things that we think is worth like keeping
private,
close to the vest. And, because you want to also be safe as to like what you're being honest with the public,
right.
I think that's worth protecting.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that so many times we see everybody, oh my God, living, what is it? What is that stupid hashtag?
Living your best life?
Living my best life, living the dream. And again, that's great. I think I've even said that, like, so I'm not knocking people who have, but I think a lot of times that's what we see.
Or that's all we see.
Right. Yeah. And I'm not saying that people need, listen, I don't want to see your drama. I don't want to, I don't want to have you like reading passive aggressive ass posts where it's like, to all of those people out there, if I text you and text me, it's like, I don't want to hear, I don't care. Like that is just awkward.
Why don't you just text the person that you're mad about?
Yeah, just text them
or call them rather.
Or exactly. But I think that this is something that I'm like, okay, like I think it's good to kind of give people like just an idea of how our struggles, wounds, weaknesses can kind of hold us back, and also like make you kind of make irrational decisions at 18 where you want to go get a boob job. And listen, and at the end of the day, I'm still alive.
That's right.
And even when you make dumb decisions, it's not the end of the world.
And that actually is a good point. I'm glad you're saying that, because what you look back on and wish you did or didn't do it is a part of your story. So a healthy thing is to embrace that was you, is you, and is a part of you. But it doesn't mean you have to stay there.
Yeah, totally.
And you don't have to feel bad about yourself forever. But ending on a positive note. So we talked about our weakness. If we were to summarize in a real quick way, what would be the antidote? Can you tell me what would my antidote be? And then I can work on that, and I'll tell you what yours would be.
What do you mean? How am I going to tell you what your antidote is?
It's kind of like a guess. It's kind of like, this is what I think would help.
I don't know.
We can talk about our
I think, sorry guys. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you what to do for you.
Okay. So we'll do our own. So why don't you start? So what would be an antidote for your weakness or what you're working on?
I think for myself, the thing that I need to press into is an essence of like a spirit of gratitude.
Yeah.
For myself. I think, and also I would say, I listened to this podcast the other day, and what did she say? She said it was kind of like, or no, you were telling me, not thinking positive, but like trying to find the good in the thing, right?
For sure.
So I think for me, it's like every day being looking for the things that I am grateful for.
And maybe some backstory on that is Nadia has a very honest and a real perspective, which is whenever someone says just look at what's positive, what would go through her mind is, oh, so you want to pretend like everything's okay, like you don't want to actually deal with the truth of it. So the difference that she was pointing out is looking at the true thing and seeing the good thing that's about the true thing. So it's the same quarter, different side of the coin.
Like, honestly, even if in that you're suffering, even if it's just like being honest to that this sucks.
Yeah.
But you know what? I know that I'm going to come out stronger in the end of it. Or when I get through this, I'm going to realize, like, you know, I can get through this. So it's like, you know, when I think of like something as simple, not simple because it was not simple, but like having Judah, like that first almost year was like one of the hardest of my life because I had really bad postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety. And I think that people sometimes just dismiss it and they're just like really like shitty about it. And they're just like, oh, you know, it's fine. You're going to forget about it in 2 seconds. It's like, no, fool, I'm not.
But I'm not forgetting right now.
And I ain't forgetting right now. But guess what? I think in hindsight now, but I got through it. And sometimes I think to myself, like, are you kidding me? If I can get through that, I can go to this dumb ass callback that's like, I'm selling fried chicken. Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, it's just, so I think there's something about doing that. And I think for me, my antidotes would be like being grateful, even though like it could be a season of like, I don't know how we're going to pay our bills tomorrow, but you know what? I'm grateful that we have a home. I'm grateful 100%. That we have our health. You know what? I might not have perfect health. Like my skin is kind of turning white in some areas, but guess what? Like I can walk and I can see, and you know, I don't have like a terminal illness that can possibly take my life, and I have my family. So I think that those are things. And I also think that part of it is also like having those days where when you feel shitty and you feel sad and you feel like this freaking sucks, to be in that, but also I think you can't sit in that too long.
Right. Yeah, it's good to experience it and not suppress it, because we learn that adds to the depression. Pretending like something's not there.
It's like, oh, what?
Yeah.
What trauma? I don't know what you're talking about. But anyways, what about you?
No, I love that. I think that's a good perspective on you. For me, I think the struggle that I deal with constantly leads to a lack of confidence. So what that means is, so I go into an audition room and then I can't actually be lost in the role because I'm worried about this, that, or the other. So I think an antidote for me, and something that I've been trying to do and will continue to try to do, is to start owning up to my word. And here's what I mean. So if I say, Preston, you're going to work out tomorrow, something that I have done is not done it, not owned up to, you know, I basically have broken too many promises to myself. So I think something that's really going to help me and build the confidence, even as I'm working out, even as I'm starting, you know, to move into a place where physically I feel better, something that I learned whenever I lost a whole bunch of weight is that my mental space wasn't there, even though I was physically much smaller. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think the true antidote for me is I got to start like making promises to myself and keeping them.
Right.
You know, and like like today, example, I wanted to run. I had forgotten about it in the morning, and then in the afternoon, I was like, shoot, I know we're going to do this podcast. I know we got stuff, but I got to fit it in. I got to do it. I'm really stoked that I did. And I ran literally my fastest. I gave you
shit about it. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. I wasn't going to put you on blast, but.
No, I want to put myself on blast because I think that that's part of, you know, I wasn't feeling good. We had went to this train thing. I was exhausted. I've just been feeling.
You hadn't eaten yet?
I hadn't eaten. I was feeling under the weather. And he's like, so I want to go. Are you cool with me going for a run? Like, and I'm thinking, I am feeling like so much like shit. I got to go. We got to record this podcast tonight. And you want to go for a 30-minute run? When? And I'm going to go sit with Judah. Like, okay, if you want to go for a run, go for a run. But then, you know, once I got some Zanku chicken in my system, and so
the blood sugar rise,
Zanku chicken to the rescue.
Yeah,
I was like, he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sorry."
Yeah.
Like, I know that, and it means a lot to me that he feels, because that's one of the things that actually we learned in therapy, that his whole life he was so agreeable. He was always the mediator, always wanted to keep the peace. He wanted everybody to be happy, that he never really took the time as a child to really see what made him happy.
Right.
Like, truly.
And to fight for that.
And so he's always just been constantly breaking promises to himself. And it's like our therapist was like, you need to start keeping promises to yourself. So when you say that you want to do this, you need to make that a priority. Yeah. So it matters a lot to me. I was hangry, y'all.
Hey, it happened. But the cool thing from that is that's where I think true confidence will come from. Yeah. Whenever you say what you mean and you mean what you say. And that goes back to honesty. And it goes back to why, integrity and why we did this podcast. Thank you guys for listening. Yeah. I can't believe it. We did it again, babe. Guys.
We did it.
Oh my goodness. We are so thrilled that you are listening. We are so thrilled that you are rating, reviewing.
Yes.
You have put us at the top of the comedy charts. We are at 176. And if that doesn't sound a lot to you, go and look up how many podcasts are out there.
And also 13 countries, you guys.
We're in the top 0.001% of podcasts because of you who are currently listening. Thank you.
Holla.
If you haven't yet already, please spread the word. We want to get up to the top 10. That's our goal. Right, babe?
We'll get there.
And you can do so by simply, all you have to do, if you haven't already, is rate us 5 stars, review us, and subscribe,
y'all, and share.
All 3 are free to do, easy to do, and you can do it. And then once you do that, if you wouldn't mind telling at least one friend that you heard about No Business Like Show Business and they got to too, we would be eternally grateful.
Yes.
And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen,
be you, own yourself, own it.
Be honest.
Don't go get boob jobs.
Don't go get a boob job. Or if you do, wait till you're 25, where your mind actually is fully developed.
Do it, because I don't know. I don't even know what to tell you. But never mind.
Do it.
Just don't do it.
On to the next.
On to the next. Peace.